Welcome to the American Garage. Today on the American Garage, we're going to show you how to texture a wall. Now, we've already got sheetrock up and it's been taped and floated already. You've probably seen when a house is under construction what it looks like this. So now we want to put a texture on it before we paint. Now, there are many different ways to do this, and there are many different products to do this. I'm going to show you a simple way that we can do it with simple materials and simple tools. What I like to do is I like to use joint compound. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread the joint compound smoothly over the wall. And then use, now the tools that we need are, we need some putty knives, especially a nice wide one. You're going to get all kinds of marks if you use a short one. So get yourself a nice wide one, at least 12-inch wide. So we'll need these, and we will also need a sea sponge. Now, a sea sponge is going to make a nice texture. You can't do it with a regular artificial sponge. Go get yourself a sea sponge at your hardware store. They're not very expensive. And this will make a very nice natural texture. Now, one of the things about texturing a wall is there's really no wrong way to do it. It's all in what your personal preference is. Of course, there's all different kinds of expensive products and tools for texturing walls. There are expensive sprayers and rollers and all those sorts of things. Let's break this down and make it a little simpler. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to texture a wall just using a sea sponge, some joint compound, and a putty knife. That's all you need. Alright, so let's get started. First of all, we've got our wall ready to accept some new material. So I'm going to get some of my joint compound out. It's a type of plaster. So let's get a bunch. I like to use the little one to get it out of the bucket. And I'm going to put it right on the wall. Now, after we do that, we're going to use our long one to spread it around and make it nice and thin. The goal here is to just get an even coat, okay? If it's too thin, we won't get much texture, and if it's too thick, it'll be a very coarse texture. So you want to judge it according to what your tastes are. Alright, now I'm going to work in just a small area, and I would recommend that you work in one small area, get it textured how you want it, and then move on to the next area. Alright, now we've got an even coat for this little area. Now I'm going to take my sea sponge and I'm just going to dab it. And as I dab it, I'm going to see what the texture is going to look like. Now, if I put a thick coat of joint compound, it's going to be very coarse and you're going to get lots of little spikes. If it's thin, then you're not going to get much texture at all. Now the beauty of this is we could also take the sea sponge and we could make swirl marks with it. You'll see people do swirl marks sometimes. So you can use your own creativity, your own imagination to make the texture however you want it. And if you don't like it, just take your wide putty knife and erase it while it's still wet. So let's continue. Now, once this is dried up a little bit, I don't want my texture to be like this because it's too coarse, alright? But I want it to be spiky a little bit, and when it dries a little bit, I'm going to take the putty knife and I'm just going to very gently glide over the top of it to knock it down. Once it's knocked down, when it's half dry, then we'll have a nice even texture just kind of smushed on the wall. Okay, so that's the the basics on how to texture the walls yourself. Now this is a great technique to use also if you're going to patch an area. Now later on we're going to be patching some cracks in the walls in other rooms, so I'll show you how we're going to apply it in those situations. And you can use it to blend in. Alright, so basically when we want to texture a wall, all we need is a C-sponge, putty knife, and some joint compound. We put the joint compound on the wall nice and smooth. We dab it with our C-sponge. When it's almost dry, about half dry, we knock it down with the putty knife, real gently. Now, if you end up pushing too hard and making it smooth again, just go back at it with the C-sponge and do it all over again. That's the beauty of it. You really can't mess it up. Well, thanks for joining us here at the American Garage, and we'll see you next time. Good job, Carl.
Thank you. I guess you could say these are the days of great gobbledygook.